Madam Speaker, I am pleased to rise to debate RNDP motion to call on the Liberal government once again to end subsidies to their buddies in big oil. The best time to do this was years ago. The second best time to do it is today. Time is running out, yet the Liberals continue to hold on to the strange idea that we're just another couple $billion to big oil away from solving the climate crisis. It's wrong. They know it's wrong, but they continue to maintain this fallacy and hope no one will notice that they're doing the opposite of what they're saying. They may say they care about reversing catastrophic climate change, but you don't get to say you care while propping up the same companies that are wrecking our environment with our tax dollars to fund their bonuses. You don't get to say you care when Cenovus recently announced its best first quarter profit ever, raking in almost $1 billion more than it did 1 year ago. Or Imperial Oil tripling its 2021 earnings, or Suncor quadrupling theirs. These companies are not self-made. They're doing it with this government's help, with our tax dollars. Meanwhile, it's workers, Indigenous peoples, young people, Northerners who are paying the price in every way while this government sits back. These are the people that are getting ripped off at the pump and may no longer be able to even afford to drive to their jobs, or are struggling to pay rent or groceries. People who are consistently left behind by a government that likes to cosplay as the plucky heroes saving the environment. But it's not heroic to give billions to big oil. It's not brave. It's not challenging the status quo. It is the status quo, and it's going to get our planet destroyed. It's funny, Madam Speaker, this government regularly talks about listening to science, but rarely does when it comes to climate change. The IPCC has been clear on the need to end oil subsidies, yet this government pretends that this isn't the case. The IPCC has said that countries like Canada need to increase investments in renewables by at least a factor of 3 to meet our climate goals. Yet this government still hasn't done this. It goes without saying that I would never accuse members of the government of misleading the House or even Canadians while in this chamber, but it does beg the question. What would you call a government that says they're tackling climate change by giving billions to big oil? What do you call a government that presents itself as an environmental champion on the international stage and to the public while consistently missing every target it's ever taken? I'll leave that question to Canadians. The facts are clear. Canada has the worst record in the G20, handing out 14 times more financing to the oil and gas sector than renewables. It's no surprise that big oil has always had the ear of this government, which I guess is easy to do when this government has had 6,800 recorded meetings with big oil. It's worked, having successfully lobbied the Liberals for a $2.6 billion tax credit for unproven carbon capture technologies that allows them to justify increased production and higher emissions. In total, this government gave $8.6 billion last year to oil companies already raking in record profits. It's always the same with this government. Help for those at the top, nice words for everyone else. But those words have been nice. In 2019, we heard about a Just Transition Act. The government failed to deliver, and the environmental commissioner had to recently call them out over their lack of plan to support workers and communities through the transition to a low carbon economy. At COP26 in November, we heard nice words again from this government to phase out public financing of the fossil fuel sector. We heard nice words in the mandate letters for the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change, and the Minister of Natural Resources. Every single one, nice words about phasing out public subsidies for big oil. But recent testimony from finance and ECCC officials at Environment Committee show that it's not much more than nice words. Let's be clear, nice words don't help people afford the basic needs. Nice words won't stop the climate catastrophe. My home is here in northern Manitoba, where long drives between communities is a daily reality of life. People here in Thompson regularly drive 8 hours to our capital, Winnipeg, to pick up supplies and things they need. For many surrounding communities, Thompson is where many people come in for healthcare, to access other services, to pick up groceries and shop for necessities. This morning, the cost of gas here in Thompson was $1.85. In Cross Lake, $1.89. In Lynn Lake, $2. In Churchill, $2.56. How are people expected to have money left over for anything else when gassing up costs this much? Where do these people turn? Who is standing up for them? A better way does exist. It's not too late for this government to reverse course from the path towards climate disaster it's put us on. It starts with ending subsidies to big oil and reinvesting that money towards both renewable energy and help for Canadians struggling with the cost of living, as our motion calls for today. There's no reason the Liberals can't start by eliminating tax credits for oil and gas exploration and development immediately. This would bring in almost $10 billion in the next 4 years. We ought to include profitable oil and gas companies in the Canada Recovery Dividend to tax their excess profits and redistribute that money to get Canadians struggling to get by. We must suspend the GST on residential energy bills, double the GST tax credit, and increase the Canada Child Benefit for all recipients now. I urge this House to support our motion, but there's so much we need to be doing. We must go further. We must do more. My other question is, why haven't we activated all the tools at our disposal, like our crown corporations, and used public ownership in the fight against climate change? Why haven't we made the types of investments necessary to support communities in need to fight back? Indigenous peoples and Northerners are already paying the price for climate change. How many catastrophic floods or fires before we take it seriously? How many evacuated communities? How many destroyed homes and livelihoods gone before we finally do what we need to save people, communities, and our planet? It seems that every year, somewhere in the country, there are record temperatures, there are record floods, or record forest fires. Every evacuation, every destroyed community is a proverbial canary in the coal mine of climate change. Communities are crying out as they're being destroyed by our indifference. And the worst part is, as long as we continue to give billions of dollars to big oil, we are subsidizing our own destruction. Every climate disaster, every flood or fire is on our hands. We are doing this. Today, we're witnessing here in our part of the country the devastating flooding in Peguis First Nation, a community that this government and governments before promised they would fund flood mitigation efforts. A promise unmet, and now Peguis is dealing with the catastrophic impacts. A total evacuation of the community of over 1,870 members, more than 700 homes impacted. We're talking about a community that has flooded 5 times in the last 16 years. They know how to deal with floods, but it's getting worse. The feds and the province may show up with sandbags, but when it comes to long-term support, the federal government has been nowhere to be seen. When asked about this by the CBC, the federal government refused to commit to long-term supports, leaving communities like Peguis in the lurch. Why? Imagine if there was a place for communities like Peguis to turn to get the funding they needed for the infrastructure that they know they need that would help with climate change, adaptation, and mitigation efforts. My bill, C-245, an act to amend Canada's Infrastructure Bank Act, is motivated by the communities in my riding and across the country that have nowhere to turn to get the support they need to survive climate change. This is about standing with communities. It is ultimately about saving lives. If this House is truly serious about supporting Indigenous and Northern communities, if we are truly serious about taking on catastrophic climate change, I invite all members to stand with communities like the ones I represent by supporting this bill when the time comes. For too long, this House, this government has shown its loyalty to those at the top, those that need the least amount of help. It's time this House, this government stood with everyone else. It's time this government stopped being part of the problem and started being part of the solution. It's not too late, but soon it will be. Let's get to work now.